In this lesson, we will review a sample exercise, in this case a text to everybody, also known as a short note. And really try to pay attention, because if you learn how we review this sample exercise, you can also apply this to your own work. So in this review, we will review the specific aspects first. So we will have a look at the content and the language in this sample exercise and review that. Then afterwards we will compare the sample exercise to an ideal sample and see what can be done better. So first, let's have a look at which specific aspects you will be graded on. A quick refresher. So you will be graded on content, and within content you will be graded on the execution of the exercise. So did you understand what to do, and did you execute the instructions in a correct way? And the clearness and understandability of your exercise. So is your exercise clear? Is it understandable as a whole? Then you will be also graded on your language, of course. And within language, you will be graded on the specific aspects of grammar, vocabulary, and the spelling. So now that we know the specific aspects, let's move on to the sample exercise that we are going to review in this lesson. So here we see the exercise description of this sample exercise, which is to write a text to everybody or to write a short note. And in this case, as you can see in the title, it is about your hobby. And in the text you read, U krijgt elke week een wijkkrant. You receive a newspaper from the neighborhood every week. Iedereen uit de buurt mag iets voor deze krant schrijven. Everybody from the neighborhood may write something for this newspaper. And then it says here, important, u schrijft over uw grootste hobby. You write about your biggest hobby, and then schrijf minimaal 3 zinnen op, write at least 3 sentences, denk aan, think of. And now comes the key of the exercise, the instructions that you need to follow. So the instructions here are, first of all, wat is uw grootste hobby? So, what is your biggest hobby? Next, waarom vindt u dit zo leuk? So, why do you find this so much fun? And finally, wanneer doet u dit? So, when do you do this? Yeah, so the instructions are first, what is your biggest hobby? Then, why do you find this so much fun? Why do you like this so much? And finally, when do you do this? So, those are the 3 instructions that are the key of this exercise. That needs to be in your writing work. And then finally you see the small sentence, schrijf in hele zinnen. This will usually be there, and it means to write in complete sentences. Okay, so this is a sample exercise that we're going to review. Now I would like to ask you to take a moment, have a look at this exercise and see if you can already find some mistakes. So look at the content and look at the language, and when you are done, resume the video, and then we will have a look at this sample exercise together. So now let's start to review the sample exercise together, and first we're going to have a look at the content of the exercise. So what do you look at in content? Well, first of all, we'll look at the execution of the exercise. Have the instructions all been followed? Can we find the instructions back in the exercise? And also, we will check if the exercise is clear and understandable. But let's have a look at the execution first. So we're going to see if the instructions of the exercise have all been followed. So first of all, the first question. Wat is uw grootste hobby? What is your biggest hobby? Well, I immediately saw in the first sentence of this exercise, mijn grootste hobby is football. Well, it's not all in correct Dutch, but the instruction is followed. The information is there, so that is good. And the next one, waarom vindt u dit zo leuk? Why do you like this so much? Well, in the second and third line, you can read something about this person liking it so much because he likes ball sports and he likes to play football with his friends. So that's also there. The second bullet point, the second instruction has also been followed. What about the final and third bullet point? So, wanneer doet u dit? When do you do this? Well, in the last sentence, he says, ik speel elk weekend voetbal. Again, the Dutch is not all perfect, but the information is there. So I would say all the instructions have been followed, so we can check that box for the execution of the exercise. It has been done correctly. Next, how about the clearness and the understandability? Well, in my eyes, this is a clear text. It is well organized. There are even some conjunctions as well, like for example, want, because, and to indicate some structure, to bring some structure in the exercise. So I would say this is a clear and understandable exercise. We can also check that box. So now let's move on with the language part of the grading. So what will you be graded on for language, and let's apply that to this sample exercise. First, we're going to have a look at the grammar. And when we look at the grammar, there are small mistakes and big mistakes. And we will first look at the big mistakes. A big mistake is a mistake that you make in a grammatic topic that you need to be in control of for A2 level. So if you make a mistake in this kind of topics, then that will probably affect your grade. So let's have a look at those. And I can find immediately in the first word there's already a mistake in a personal pronoun, because he wants to say my biggest hobby, and my in Dutch is not mij, it is mijn. Yeah, mij is the object form of the personal pronoun, but if you want to say the possessive form, you need to put an N at the end, mijn. In the next sentence, I read ik deze leuk vind. And here you can see that the subject ik and the subject verb vind are spread out. And in a normal Dutch sentence, these should always be together. So it should be ik vind, yeah, and then the rest. So make sure that the subject ik and the subject verb vind are together. Don't split them up in a normal Dutch sentence. In the next sentence, in the next part, we see the same. It says ik van balsport houd. So ik is a subject, houd is a subject verb. They should be together. It should be ik houd van balsport. Then in the next sentence, we see exactly the same mistake. So this is a mistake that this person has been making consistently. You see again, first the subject, ik, and then speelt, the subject verb, is at the end. So you need to put them together. It needs to be ik speel. And there we immediately see the second mistake that is inside the verb. When you have the ik form, there should not be a T. It should be ik speel and not ik speelt. In this sentence, there is another mistake, and this is a mistake with the plural. You see here that it's written vriends. There are two ways to express the plural. Well, there are two main ways to express the plural. There are also some other ways, but the two most common ways are to express the plural with en or with an s. And the most common way is en, but there are also quite a lot of words that have a plural with s. But in this case, vriend is a word that needs to be with en in the plural. So that is also a mistake that you should be able to avoid at this level. Then finally, we have another mistake, and this one is in the form of the verbs. Again, this person wrote ik speelt instead of ik speel. So in the ik form, there is no T there. So now we have seen all the big mistakes. Let's have a look if we can find some small mistakes. And I found one in the second part of the sentence. In the second sentence of this sample exercise. I saw ik deze leuk vind. It should be ik vind dit leuk. The next small mistake that we saw was elke. So elke should actually be elk without an E, because it goes with weekend, and weekend is het weekend. So when an adjective is undecisive, like it is here, and it is before a noun, like weekend in this case, and the noun is het, then there's no E at the end. So it should be elk weekend and not elke weekend. However, as I mentioned, this is a small mistake, and in fact at this level you are not really expected to know from each noun whether it is a de or a het word. So mistakes coming from not knowing whether it's a de or a het word are in fact small mistakes. And if you make a couple of them on the exam, don't worry about them. This is not a big problem. Next, let's have a look at the vocabulary. So looking at the vocabulary, I found one thing, and that is football. That's the only really big vocabulary thing that I found. I mean, football sounds quite a lot like how we say it in Dutch, voetbal. But as you can see, it is spelled in a very different way. So as this person wrote football, the English form of the word, it makes it look like he didn't know how to write it in Dutch. So that's a vocabulary mistake. And then a spelling mistake was in balsport. So in balsport there is double L, so it will just be with one L, balsport. So if we put all these mistakes together, there's quite a lot of red there, right? So there's quite some mistakes. However, if I filter the mistakes, in my opinion, and the most essential and the biggest mistakes that this person should really work on are the sentence structure. So putting the subject ik and the verb, for example, vind, so ik vind and ik houd van, or ik speel, to put them together, the sentence structure, and also the forms of the verbs. You saw that this person twice he wrote ik speelt with a T, where that T should not be there when it is the ik form. So that is also an essential grammar topic that this person should work on. If you want to see the clean and corrected version of this exercise, you can find that in the link below this lesson. Now let's have a look at the ideal sample. The ideal samples are below each exercise in this course, and they are a very nice tool because they can help you to see how you can do it better, and also you can compare your own work with that. So you can look what you were doing wrong, but you can also see maybe some similarities of things that you're already doing correctly, and then you can see that you're on the right path. So let's have a look at this ideal sample. So here you can see it says, dit is mijn tekst over mijn hobby. So this is my text about my hobby. And then in the first line it says, so what is my biggest hobby? That was the instruction. And in this case it says, mijn grootste hobby is films kijken. My biggest hobby is to watch films. Then why? Ik vind het leuk. I find this fun. Want, because. Er zijn veel soorten films. There are many kinds of films. Then, so when do you like to watch films is, ik kijk elke week een paar films. I watch a couple of films each week. Yeah, so you can use this ideal sample, look at them, use them as a tool to see what you can do better and to compare your own work with that. Okay, so that concludes this lesson. Thank you for your attention and see you in the next video.